Welcome to the Bible Forum. This is the third Sunday in May 2020. I trust you are able to withstand the tremendous pressure put upon us by this coronavirus. There are a number of people who have died, a number of people who are suffering. This thing is not anything that we can laugh at or make a whole lot of fun about. But I was interested, just as we began the show, I got word that across the country, of the states that have opened up, states that have opened up against what other people might think was wisdom, they're reporting no real spikes in coronavirus during this last week. San Diego was challenged in terms of the number of deaths they're reporting, as many other states were. And San Diego went back and counted and said that about 6 of the nearly 200 COVID deaths are actually pure, solely coronavirus deaths. Makes you wonder how many other states were just, if anybody had the disease and they died, it died from corona. But many of those folks are elderly, and elderly folks tend to get sick anyway. It's just the way it goes. Well, we're glad you're here. We've got a lot of things to talk about tonight. We've got a full 2 hours or more as we look at it. Maybe we'll see how all that goes. The coronavirus is the thing that is making the most noise in our world. It drives every bit of news coverage and all the rest of it. But the question becomes, why this pandemic and not any of the others that we've been through? Thomas Sullivan, who's Vice President of Small Business Policy for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, tells the website Axios.com that he's hearing from small business owners. He says, quote, "There have been more calls of sheer desperation in the last 2 weeks than in the last 2 months." He choked up as he described his conversations with small business owners. He said, "I'm not talking about equity ownership or cashing in 401ks. I'm talking about food stamps, cutting down to 1 meal a day, not knowing if someone will have access to pay this month." The question here is it the pandemic that's causing all this? Or is it our government's policy? There's a strong because we can philosophy driving the corona pandemic. The immediate fear, coupled with the liberal wing's hatred of Donald Trump, has triggered a largely manufactured crisis, according to many folks. You might consider that a radical statement on the face of it, but not after you hear what's going on. Some of what's going on is coming from an intelligence alliance between the U.S., England, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. It's called Five Eyes. It concluded recently in a leaked report that China's communist government destroyed evidence of the virus, that they suppressed the truth by disappearing doctors and scientists who dared speak out. They lied about human-to-human transmission and refused to provide international experts working on a vaccine with a live strain of COVID-19. But other than all of that, they were completely open and helpful. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar ripped into Dr. Rick Bright on Thursday at a presser with the president. Bright testified before the House Committee on Energy and Commerce's Health Subcommittee about the complaint he filed and how the Trump administration failed to take the early warning about COVID-19 seriously. We were treated to excerpts of this testimony in the news and a much longer video online. Azar was upset that Bright said he was fired from his position at the department for repeatedly questioning the use of hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine as a treatment for positive COVID-19 cases. Apparently that's not exactly true, and Azar made it abundantly clear. Secretary Azar is an American attorney, a former pharmaceutical lobbyist, executive and current presidential cabinet member who serves as the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. Azar was given the opportunity to speak while leaving the White House with President Trump on Thursday. The issue? Dr. Bright's appearance in the House of Representatives Health Subcommittee. Secretary Azar said all of Dr. Rick Bright's concerns have been addressed under Trump's leadership. Quote, everything he's complaining about was achieved. Everything he talked about was done. He says he talked about the need for respirators. We procured respirators under the president's direction. He said we need a Manhattan Project for vaccines. This president initiated a vaccine Manhattan Project, diagnostic Manhattan Project, and therapeutic Manhattan Project. And by the way, whose job was that? He's talking about Dr. Bright. And he says, oh, that was yours. Apparently Dr. Bright led the development of vaccines. So Secretary Azar said, quote, while we are launching Operation Warp Speed, he's not showing up for work to be part of that. He's over there testifying in the House, complaining about everything. And who was the original sponsor for the Food and Drug Administration's authorization for the use of hydroxychloroquine? Oh, that would be Dr. Bright. So this is like somebody who was in a choir and is now trying to say he was a soloist back then, when he was saying, what he was saying is what every member of the administration and the president was saying. Like, we need more personal protective equipment. Like, we need more ventilators. We need therapeutics. We need vaccines. Every single thing he thought necessary, this president was on. This president achieved. And Dr. Bright was part of a team and was simply saying what everybody else in the White House and at HHS was saying. Not one bit of difference, he said. And hydroxychloroquine? Dr. Bright literally signed the application for FDA authorization of that. Literally, he is the sponsor of it. So his allegations do not hold water. They just do not hold water. Did you see him on television this week? They ran his testimony. I believed him until I read the truth. It's amazing. There's a debate over face masks. The left continues to attack the president because he won't wear one, or doesn't. He has an occasion. The vice president was kind of shamed into wearing one. People close to them came down with symptoms of this disease. When groups of people are not wearing a mask, the media rebukes them. The collective opinion is that masks save lives. But the real question becomes, do they? A former neurosurgeon wrote an op-ed published Thursday warning that face masks are not only ineffective against the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19, but they can be potentially dangerous in some circumstances. Dr. Russell Blaylock wrote for Technocracy that people who aren't sick should not wear a face mask. Blaylock said that since they have not yet seen any studies of the effectiveness of masks in slowing or preventing COVID-19 transmission, the best thing that can be done is to look at what impact masks have been proven to have against the flu. And he cited a 2012 analysis to make his point. He said, as for the scientific support for the use of face masks, a recent careful examination of the literature in which 17 of the best studies were analyzed concluded that, quote, none of the studies established a conclusive relationship between mask or respirator use and protection against influenza infection. Why? Well, he says it's known that the N95 mask, if worn for hours, can reduce blood oxygenation as much as 20%, which can lead to a loss of consciousness. At least one man experienced this as he was driving his car. He passed out, crashed his car, sustained injuries. How many senior citizens have had the same sort of experience? How many have removed their mask when breathing became difficult? What is the result when oxygen is limited for extended periods of time? Then there's the issue of rebreathing the virus, should you already have it. This can lead to higher concentrations of the virus in the lungs and nasal passages, even to the brain, which then makes COVID-19 even more dangerous. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommend the use of cloth face coverings, not surgical masks, not N95 respirators, for people in public. If you're in a public setting where social distancing is difficult or impossible, that's not walking around outside. Then there's the warning from the Surgeon General. In February of this year, U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams issued a public statement telling people to stop buying masks! Exclamation point. Why? He said because, quote, they are not effective in preventing the general public from catching coronavirus, end of quote. He added, seriously, people, stop buying masks. In March, Adams stood by the stance that healthy people should not wear masks, saying they cause people to touch their faces more, provide a false sense of security. All the while, the media mocks the president for not wearing a mask. Medical people excoriate the president, everybody else for not wearing a mask. In the end, the president is made to look bad, while ordinary citizens are frightened. And all this is for what? Apparently, given the science, for a feel-good technique, which is effective in only extreme cases. A California pharmaceutical company claims to have discovered a coronavirus antibody breakthrough that has shown 100% inhibition of COVID-19 in laboratory tests. Executives at Sorrento Therapeutics announced the possible coronavirus antibody treatment on Friday, saying it could be more effective than a vaccine in quickly combating COVID-19. The San Diego-based Sorrento Therapeutics, an antibody-centric biopharma company that typically focuses on cancer, claims that it has developed an antibody treatment that shields healthy cells from COVID-19 and flushes the virus out of the body within 4 days. This according to Fox News. The company claims that one of its antibodies, something they have tagged STI-1499, has shown 100% inhibition of SARS-CoV-2 in laboratory tests. They went on to say, we want to emphasize there is a cure. There is a solution that works 100% of the time. Sorrento's co-founder and CEO, Dr. Henry G., told Fox News, quote, if we have a neutralizing antibody in your body, you don't need the social distancing. You can open up a society without fear. One of the antibodies is so powerful that at a very low concentration, it's able to 100% completely prevent infection or inhibit the infection. In our studies, not even one virus escaped from the antibody. And And when this antibody prevents a virus from entering a human cell, the virus itself cannot survive. If they cannot get into the cell, they cannot replicate. So it means that if we prevent the virus from getting to the cell, the virus eventually dies out. The body clears out that virus. This puts its arms around the virus, G told Fox News. It wraps around the virus and moves them out of the body. They're calling this antibody STI 1499. It's one more of a billion antibodies that Sorrento Therapeutics has screened, only 100 of which showing promise as a treatment for COVID-19. Only 100. If testing on animals is successful, he says, Sorrento Therapeutics could begin testing the antibody in clinical trials of severe COVID-19 patients by mid-July. If the antibody treatment is effective and safe in patients, the company expects to begin a larger trial in August or possibly September. Out there in Colorado, the coronavirus death toll has dropped significantly. It did that on Friday. The state made one change in the way they record deaths. State officials are now distinguishing between people who died with COVID-19 and those who died due to COVID-19. Previously, officials lumped all the deaths together, meaning anybody who had COVID-19 when they died from COVID-19. That in the state's official death count. And you know other states are doing the same kinds of thing, especially liberal states who hate Donald Trump and probably want more money out of Congress, which the House of Representatives is quite willing to share among them. A video surfaced this week from a man who's upset with how the nation is handling the coronavirus pandemic. I tell you who this man is and his internet platform, except he's a vulgar man, so I'll just give you the salient points. Regarding Dr. Fauci's insistence we need to find a cure for the coronavirus, he asked, when did flattening the curve turn into finding the cure? Then he unleashed on governors, mayors, health officials, such as Dr. Anthony Fauci, for taking away Americans' freedoms to go back to work. He says, quote, since the start of the outbreak, nationwide lockdown measures have led to historic job loss numbers totaling more than 20 million people in April alone. The nation's unemployment rate is now the highest it has been since the Great Depression. It stands at 14.7%. He specifically criticized Dr. Fauci's remarks before the Senate, in which the nation's top infectious diseases expert warned that reopening the country too soon would result in needless suffering and death. He asked, where'd that come from? Arguing that it was a shift in tone from when the goal was simply to flatten the curve so that the country's healthcare system would not be overwhelmed. He also reacted to recent comments by Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, who said that the city will never be completely open until we have a cure. Well, who says we're going to find a cure? We haven't found a cure for cancer, and that's after 30 years. Nope, that's after a lot more than 30. After 30 years with AIDS, we don't have a cure. Well, we have a cure. It's called marriage. You remember. That's when a man and a woman marry for life, having sex only with each other. That'll take AIDS right out of the picture. So he says, we just shut down the economy? According to the CDC, flu-related deaths between the years of 1986 and 2007 ranged from 3,000 to 49,000. Since 2010, the flu-related death rate has been between 12,000 and 61,000, with the highest season being 2017-2018. The 1889 Russian flu pandemic killed about 1 million people worldwide. And we heard what about any of these? Nothing, other than they existed. And we closed how many businesses 2 years ago when 80,000 people died of the flu? None. And we wore masks in public for how many? None. And the President of the United States was involved in how many of these? None. And the media played the theme over and over again. How many times? Never. So what is it that makes this one different? Other than the fact that this one came from another country en masse, which, by the way, is the definition of a pandemic. It's the effort to make Donald Trump either look bad or to limit his power, or both. You don't believe that? Then please tell me what it is, because it's not a virus. Now, some of you are going to write to me, express your dismay that a man of the cloth could say such things about people's dying. I say, save it. Reality consists of dealing with facts, not emotions. And this virus pandemic is nothing more than a scare. And the scare works only on the uninformed or the ill-informed masses who get their news and political philosophies from the mainstream media. Yes, people are dying, but people die every day. Some die horrible deaths due to smoking or drinking alcoholic beverages or having unprotected sex, primarily with those of the same gender. And no one suggests we eliminate any of that from our midst. In fact, on social media channels, you will get banned if you do it, or you even think about doing it. So we defend the indefensible and tax the rest. This is called making money off your weaknesses. Can't stop this thing from recording. You don't know why.